and it's time to look at Star Wars news. And unfortunately, we're going to start with a sad story, but we want to turn every sad story into a good, just a chance to remember someone's what they brought to the Star Wars story, what they brought to the movies, what they brought to our fandom. And of course, David Prowse passed away this weekend. He was 85. He was the man inside of the Darth Vader, say, costume, outfit, getup, whatever. He was Darth Vader and brought a lot to it. And I think there's, over the years, been more credit, correctly given to what Prowse actually did on set. To take nothing away from James Earl Jones, but I think James Earl Jones would probably say the same thing. So, Joseph, as we look back on David Prowse and what he brought to the Star Wars saga, what are some of your favorite memories of Vader the figure, not the toys, but just Vader the figure and David Prowse and everything he did?
Yeah. I think that's great to concentrate on. What did David Prowse do? Because Vader is such a complicated character. We hear him as James Earl Jones. His original physicality and presence is all David Prowse, but then, you have Bob Anderson doing a lot of the fights. So I think it is a complicated relationship to, like, yes, everybody knows that. It's right there in the credits. David Prowse is Darth Vader along with James Earl Jones. But when I think about what he actually did to add up to the sort of great mystique that is Vader, is I think not just the height, but that the bodybuilding thing. Because I remember hearing about that a long time ago when I was a kid, of like, oh, Vader was a bodybuilder. And I was like, it's not like you see him like muscles bulging out.
Yeah.
But I think that posture and that power, that sense of power, like, I have never had great developed muscles, but when I do work out, I just feel a little more, strong, even if it isn't visually there. And I think he did just kind of exude this power and strength in his physical presence. And I think that's a ton of what he contributed. And then a thing that I have always loved and also, had a fun Star Wars sense of humor about is, the Darth Vader gesture to me is pointing. And, I did a sketch one of the very first times that I got to do a show that was just all pop culture nerd humor. It was the Darth Vader School of Sign Language, where everything he said was pointing, except for join me was a fist, So definitely had a sense of humor about it. But then when you look back at it too, like it is a great choice, because it is somebody that is a real power gesture, right? To just be like, whoever I'm talking to, it's just my finger in your face.
Yeah.
Is a gesture of, I am in command. I am telling you what to do. And I think it's a weird thing to pull out, but I think it is like one of the key moments of Vader's physical presence is that pointing gesture.
Yeah, the pointing, other than, like I said, it's just impolite, right? I've gone through hospitality training. If someone asks me for a direction, I'm to wave my hand open, not point. So there's that, but just there's also the way he played it, and I think as the character of Vader has grown, it lines up and matches to what Prowse did with those points and the shakes, the shaking of the fists and those kind of things of at times almost like a restrained anger. Like, he's the most powerful man in the room, and sometimes all he can do is just point at you, rip you from limb to limb. But I've always enjoyed that, and I'm glad you mentioned the bodybuilding thing. And he's kind of an old school lifter, so he's got wide shoulders and chest, and just it comes from who he is. Look, the John Cena's and the Rocks, and they're in the gym 17 hours a day. And, maybe they have some special tuna every now and then that helps them. But, they're naturally big is what I'm saying. But he was as well. But exactly what he didn't lumber. Darth Vader didn't lumber. There was an elegance to his stroll. There was something that a little added that was menacing. And I think you're right. It's how he knew to carry himself as 6'5" himself. And there's great shots of him. There's an old Benny Hill sketch he appears in that people were tweeting out this week that, I love British comedy, not a huge Benny Hill fan, but, he comes in and he's in his little swim trunks and he's got his broad shoulders doing his old school kind of bodybuilder pose. And it's Vader, it's Vader in shorts. You can see it. And looking back, and I'm like, so you mentioned Bob Anderson, who was so great and a swordsman and worked with. If you're not familiar with Bob Anderson, look up his career. Just there's if there's a fight, in a fantasy or pop culture movie, there's a good chance Bob Anderson has something to do with it.
If there's a good fight in Doctor Who, it's often Bob Anderson.
Really? Yeah. I mean, Lord of the Rings stuff is too. Peter Jackson brought him in for that, and I remember one point, I can't remember exactly, but probably in my early 20s, where the name Bob Anderson popped up, and I was just like, well, no, David Prowse is Vader, and life was kind of saying yes, and Bob Anderson did too. So we honor what Bob Anderson did, but it's definitely you're not focused too much on the physicality of Vader during the fights. I mean, you are, but like it is, the memories of Vader are him strolling down a hallway and not lumbering, but standing over people and the menacing, all that kind of stuff there. It just comes from Prowse, and we know he was acting on the set. It's important. We see now with Mandalorian, it's important who's in those costumes. Is a lot comes from that. So, anyways, really appreciate that side.
Yeah. It's something I thought of when you were talking about just how aware he was of being menacing. There's been a lot in more modern canon, I'm sure it's there in Legends too, about how much Vader knows that he is terrifying, and how much he uses that of like, yeah, absolutely, he can choke people to death, but he knows his face and his presence is just terrifying. And I think, that story wouldn't be able to be told in books and comics if Prowse didn't have that demeanor of like, just that he seemed to know that Vader should loom, right? And we have like actual shots where Vader kind of looks down at somebody and looms, but he always has that presence, like he knows he's menacing.
Yeah, well said, because and then a lot of storytelling, Legends otherwise, is going to be drawn from New Hope, right? A lot of it just goes back to what we first were introduced to, and I think that's part of the Vader story is what you just said, being aware that he's Vader.
Yeah.
Yeah. David Prowse, without a doubt, had an interesting relationship with Star Wars, other than he loved being part of it. He loved being Darth Vader. There's some well-documented things of maybe he ran afoul of Lucasfilm or George himself, and it leads to somewhat of a bittersweet, tragic story at times. There's some sadness there too. And there's a great documentary, at least I think it's great. You should check it out. If you haven't, it is called I Am Your Father, by Marco Scobotta and Tony Bestard. It came out in 2015. I think I watched it on Netflix. I don't know if it's still on there. Worth a viewing if you haven't seen it. Jamie Stangroom also sat down with Prowse a few years ago. You can check it out on his YouTube channel. And without a doubt, Joseph, there's some sadness there. He spoiled some things back in the day, and was maybe a little upset at some of the choices made, including discovering that he was going to be voiced over, and including not wanting to be the face behind the helmet when the mask came off in Return of the Jedi, which is a lot of what the documentary I Am Your Father is based around. They built up and tried to recreate that moment for him. So there was some of that, and I think, I don't know, it's good. It was in passing. It was good to see the fandom not worried about any of that. They just love him and what he brought.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's always valuable to remember that all of these stories are created by humans. And, when we really appreciate the work of people like George Lucas or Dave Filoni or Mark Hamill or Carrie Fisher, on and on, we can kind of elevate them. And I think it is right to celebrate their accomplishments as artists, but also to really respect them as humans who are complicated. And I think, David Prowse and Lucas, and going back and forth, and, what was their beef? Who did what to who is, it's a part of the Star Wars tapestry that all these creators are humans. And it's a part of the tapestry of Star Wars behind the scenes.
Yeah, his daughter, Rachel Prowse, tweeted out this: Dad would have been over the moon about the reaction he has had today. Me and the rest of the family have been overwhelmed by the lovely comments and the sharing of some hilarious memories. Thanks, Twitter, for brightening a difficult day. I think that's great. I think in this age of social media, sometimes even myself, I can be like, that's it, I'm done, I'm out of here. But this is also the power of what it can be. It can connect people. It can raise voices up, raise the spirits of people too. And this is a great use of it. And again, in passing, it's some. Hey, it's we all got to go someday, and I'd still like to stick around to hear some of the nice things said about me. It's just the way it works. And maybe you believe David Prowse is looking down and watching the BBC News from his apartment in heaven. I don't know. This I saw this tweet and it actually touched me that she, it kind of acknowledges that David Prowse, he just would have loved this and loved this is something he became Vader. I've never met him or anything. I'm honored to have a personalized autograph from him that my friend Frank Kazarian gave me. It's on a variant cover of Darth Vader 1 from back in 2014. And Frankie Kazarian, pro wrestler extraordinaire, was at a convention signing at a booth a couple spots away from David and got that for me. And it's just, never met him, but it's just nice. Darth Vader wrote my name. And it's a part of my childhood as it is so many Darth Vader, man. Darth Vader was the villain of my life, who I also grew to love and root for.
Yeah, and I thought Lucas's comment was really touching and kind. And knowing that they had their issues with one another, that he gave him such credit for helping to create Vader, and so it was really interesting to hear Lucas say he did a great job creating this villain in this tragic figure, and Lucas reinforcing again that he saw that sees Vader as a tragic figure. And I do think, when you go back and watch A New Hope, he is just Darth Vader is a terrifying a baddie, as David Prowse himself would say. Would use that turn of phrase. He's a baddie. He's a scary cinema villain for the ages. But in Prowse's performance, with the moments where he moves and the moments where he's still, and you don't really know what's going on behind the mask, there is that the part of Vader that is tragic does come out too. So I thought that was great to hear Lucas celebrate both the character and what Prowse added to the character.
Absolutely, indeed. And I think I said he was 6'5", 6'6", just double checking the article. I want to get that right. 6'6". That's important. So, this is the reality of our world. As we said, we've, Carrie Fisher, Peter Mayhew, Kenny Baker, a lot of the legends from that era, that time, are moving on. It is, the Force would teach us to not mourn them, right? Miss them, do not. Thanks, Yoda. But no, we do, and we'll always have those memories and always have these characters. When you first saw them, we grow up with them, we learn from them, we still learn from them. But I love going back to being 7 and seeing Darth Vader come down the shuttle ramp in Return of the Jedi. And that was really my first actual, what is that? Who is this? And it was David Prowse making that happen for me. So thank you, David.
Yeah.
All right. From there, from Darth Vader, we are going to, a couple heroes. I don't know. This just kind of came out this morning as we were getting ready to record. We wanted to kind of wedge it on into the news here. Anthony Bresnikan always does some great reporting. He is a reporter. He's a journalist in the old sense. He's probably got a little hat that says press on it. And Anthony is a great cat. You and I both have worked with him and known him over the last couple of years. He put out this dual interview stitched together, like he's Dr. Frankenstein. He's stitched together this interview with Dawson and Filoni, Rosario Dawson, Dave Filoni, about Ahsoka Tano, about The Mandalorian. There's a lot in there. There's a lot to discuss, a lot of good things. Joseph, you and I, we can pick out things we want to discuss in it, I guess, but also we want to focus on the thing that actually was added to the article after it came out.
Yeah.
Which is the timeline question that a lot of people have about this recent chapter of Mandalorian. So, Joseph, where do you want to go in?
Let's start with the ending.
Yes. That's very Star Warsy.
Exactly, and kind of goes with this question, which I had missed because I read it early in the morning, and then more. There was more. Yeah,
Bresnikan tweeted out. He said, "Thanks for all the retweets and favorites. We're going to add this." I'm like, "Is that how it works? If we get bonus content if we like the article?" Yeah. So here's the deal. Like I said, again, full spoilers. If you have not seen the end of Rebels, if you've not seen the end of this most recent Mandalorian, and you want to, we're going to dive into it here. The end of Rebels, the coda, the epilogue includes the moment where Ahsoka the White, as we call her, similar to Gandalf the White in Lord of the Rings, returns, grabs Sabine on Lothal and said, hey, we got to go find Ezra. He's out there somewhere with Thrawn. Now, cut to chapter 13. This is part of the quest of Ahsoka Tano, sitting there with the magistrate. Morgan Elsbeth saying, hey, where's your master? Where's Grand Admiral Thrawn? So where does it all fit in, Joseph? We love timelines. We love canon. We're junkies to that, you've heard.
Yeah.
We like that too. We also like the spirit of the storytelling. So real quickly here, then I'll get your thoughts in here. Dave says this. I don't know. I think I should read. I'll try. Maybe I don't know. Here we go. Dave said this when asked of where does that scene fit in.
I think you should just read the Bresnikan's question and Filoni's quote. Why not?
Right. We're doing this on the fly. This is like a good yes and. All right. Here we go. So the quest we learn is to search for the villain Grand Admiral Thrawn. The last time fans saw Ahsoka was this spring's finale of the Clone Wars, but in the actual Star Wars chronology, the last time we saw her was at the end of Rebels, venturing off with Sabine Wren to find Ezra Bridger, who vanished along with Thrawn. Where does that scene fit in? Where we find her in The Mandalorian? ? Dave Filoni. Probably the sly grin behind a cowboy hat. Right. But no, it's an interesting one. That's not necessarily chronological. I think the thing that people will most not understand is they want to go in a linear fashion. But as I learned as a kid, nothing in Star Wars really works in a linear fashion. You do episodes 4, 5, and 6, and then 1, 2, and 3. So in the vein of that history, when you look at the epilogue of Rebels, you don't really know how much time has passed. So it's possible that the story I'm telling in The Mandalorian actually takes place prior to that. Possible. I'm saying it's possible. End of interview. Joseph, what do you think about the Filoni of it all?
I love this for so many reasons. So after my wife and I did that viewing of Chapter 13, and she had some questions, because we watch, bits and pieces out of order, and she's like, can you remind me of Ahsoka's timeline? And it's like, I can, and I would love to. Are you okay? Because I'm going to go hard. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to tell you the variables.
I envision you pulling down a chart like that Charlie Day meme that goes around, just pulling down that chart behind your Christmas tree.
It really was. She's like, no, it's okay. You can do it all. So I got to this, and I said, not exactly this, but got to this crux of, we've got this coda at the end of Rebels that feels like it's right after Endor, but there's nothing in it that confirms it's right after Endor.
Right.
So there's this room to say in Chapter 13 of The Mandalorian, when she's like, where's Grand Admiral Thrawn, that it could be because she's desperate to find Ezra because she hasn't found him yet. Mm-hmm. Or it could be that she went and tried to find Ezra with Sabine, something bad happened, and now she's really after Thrawn, and we just don't know which it is. And Sarah was like, oh, that's great. That's fun. And the reason that I just wanted to start here is because I think this is so important to how we talk about Star Wars, how Filoni talks about Star Wars. Filoni has said in other interviews that he likes to have a little bit of ambiguity in Star Wars, a little bit of wiggle room, because he himself as a fan knows that a part of it is, part of the fun of Star Wars is wondering and maybe not ever having the answer, or maybe not having the answer yet. And I just think that this is really important, because this response from Filoni, we get to interpret, but what he's saying right now is there aren't firm answers. Right now, we don't, as fans, know exactly where in the timeline this is. You could interpret this as him hinting and saying, actually, what I want to do now is say, Ahsoka's on a mission to find the location of Grand Admiral Thrawn. When she knows that, then she'll get a white cloak and a cool staff and go tell Sabine that she's ready to go find Ezra. That sounds to me like what he's hinting at, timeline-wise. But again, it's so open for discussion and interpretation right now because we don't know.
We don't know. I'll insert some silly real-world thoughts. March 5th, 2018 was the aired finale of Rebels. As we know in animation, he's probably working on that ending 2, 3, 4 years prior. Like that's how it works. And the idea of a Disney Plus series with The Mandalorian, and that the second season of it, you can incorporate some of these characters, I don't think it's in his brain. Even though Mandalorian had 2-3 years prep of lead up time to actually get to this point. I honestly think it's similar to Clone Wars season 7, where he gets to go back when he didn't think he would.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the Coda finale. I think the spirit of it was right after Endor, and there's some other things around, the other character stuff we learn, Hera and her son, everything that I'm like, okay, I think it's relatively right after Endor. And he's right. There is no timestamp on it. There is no weeks later, 6 months later. There isn't really any of that. So it's totally open. But I just think now he's like, holy crap, I get to maybe go explore it in a different way. I'm going to go evaluate how I want to tell that story now. And that's definitely the spirit of Star Wars. That's what George has been doing to us a lot. I can't wait to get a hold of it. I don't have it yet, the Paul Duncan Star Wars archives about the prequels and special edition, because there's some great stuff in there that I saw about the past. And also, I think it might even be the one I do have, where there was that story conference in 81 leading up to Return of the Jedi, where George lays out a lot of the history, and he tells Kasdan and Kazanjian and Marquand, no. Leia's mother had the kids, or Anakin's wife, and he's with Leia Leia for about 6 months or so before she dies.
Yeah, she goes to Alderaan with Leia.
Yeah, and George goes back and tells it a different way, because he's like, yeah, I want to. This is how it works for me. We talked a lot about it, ForceCenter, almost to the point I don't want to finger wag, but it's just like, that's the spirit of storytelling versus putting down timelines on paper and broadcasting those. So I'm very open to the idea. I personally want it to be, want the Mandalorian to be after, but I like the idea of 9 years of Ezra and Thrawn in Purgle Town. Essentially, from beginning New Hope to now, that'd be about 9 years if they can't find him. I like that.
Yeah, and I mean, it extends the story possibilities to Thrawn and Ezra's adventures, tying in with the beginnings of First Order, and it lets us go like, hey, if there ever is this great Ahsoka and Sabine go finding Ezra and Thrawn, they might find Ray Carson too, Yeah.
Ray Sloan, yeah.
Ray Sloan, excuse me, yeah. Ray Carson is an author. Ray Sloan is a character. My apologies.
Ray Carson's just out there writing, hey, what's going on? Love it.
They can find all the authors out there.
That'd be great. Yeah. And look, I say it so much that it sounds like I said it. You said it first here, and it is a ForceCenter thing of engaging with the story presented to you. It does not mean not speculate. It does not mean have your own theories. It does not mean have your own opinions on what you actually saw, watch. It just means that the story will roll out in front of you, and you'll get what you get, or you might not get the answer. Bob Snoke. Well, we might never know what Bob Snoke did before he became Snoke.
Yeah.
Or Bob Snoke's cousin. But the potential is there, and now it is. We have this. That's to me what I love about Disney Plus. And while I did re-up my subscription to the evil monster Disney, and I understand there's problems with it, I'm there for that too. But I love what this does to me as a Star Wars fan. Now you could tell all these stories that you just couldn't do 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing too for Filoni. We as Star Wars fans know that he is, really the Padawan to Lucas, and he has done a ton of the Star Wars storytelling that means a lot to us. Like, he's still in a corporate structure, and he didn't have the keys to the kingdom enough to do some of the storytelling he can now, and I think that makes a difference as well.
Was he trained by George Lucas? I haven't heard him say that.
I think he was.
He was. No, kidding. I love Filoni's philosophies. Seriously, I do. I really love the stuff he puts out. I'm not going to tweet out a meme of me praising a Filoni head in the sky like I saw going around last week, but I absolutely, he's plugged into it. He understands this stuff so well, and I'll follow him on the adventure. Anything else in the interview that jumped out to you that we want to discuss here today?
Yeah, two things. Just one, just kind of the fun thing is, I think I'd maybe heard it somewhere before, but I didn't, or seen it on social media, but I didn't realize that Rosario Dawson had gone to college with Hayden Christensen or been in that Shattered Glass movie. And I thought the photo in this interview of them together, and I know a lot of people have already seen this, and it's one of the reasons that they fan casted Rosario Dawson in their mind. But that was fun for me, because if I had seen it before, I forgot about it. And now that she is Ahsoka for sure, that was really fun to see a picture of Anakin and Ahsoka hugging in college.
Yeah, yeah. It's a small world sometimes, this industry.
Yeah, yeah. The other quote that I wanted to talk about for just a minute, Ken, is so Bresnikan says the episode is called The Jedi, but Ahsoka's whole identity is based around leaving the Order.
Right.
And Filoni says, yeah, I think something fans like about the character is that she's rather complex. They all focus very hard on the line, I am no Jedi from Star Wars Rebels, but it's undeniable that she's trained by the Jedi. I think to most observers, she is very Jedi to them. I would argue in some ways, by being so selfless and rejecting a lot of the past that would have given her power, she's more Jedi-like than even some of the characters who claim to be Jedi. I thought that
Ooh,
was great.
burn.
What's that?
Burn.
A burn on other Jedi. Yeah, I mean, I think because there's been a discussion about her being called the Jedi in this episode. I brought it up of it's called the Jedi, and Ahsoka doesn't seem to take the time or the energy to correct anyone when they call her a Jedi. Think about more too. I just kind of felt like, well, if Filoni really wanted that to be a discussion point, he would have made room in the episode for it, I think.
Mhm.
But I also just thought I was drawn to this because I think this is another point where I think Star Wars is written to leave room for debates, and I think Filoni likes that from what he said in other interviews. And I think that for me, I'm fascinated by this story that there was the Jedi Order. They gave Ahsoka many perspectives and beliefs that she ingrained. And then when she got upset with the Jedi Order, it's because they weren't living up to what they had taught her. So I don't ever see her as rejecting the core principles of what it is to be a Jedi. I see it as her rejecting the Jedi Order because they were failing on those principles. So I really like this idea that the Order fell, the pageantry and structure around how you get labeled officially by a Jedi and who gets to hand out the title, that stuff is all gone. And Ahsoka is pursuing the path that she thinks is most Jedi-like. So for me, I think I just really felt that as somebody who's always on about justice for the Jedi, that's one of the things I really loved about the episode is, yeah, maybe she was having a direct conversation with Luke eventually, or if we get to see her have a Force Skype meditation chat with Yoda, maybe those issues will be more up for grab. But I like that she's just like, the Order's gone. Here are the principles that I live by, and if people want to call me a Jedi, I'm going to let them because I'm trying to be my definition of that. And the spirit of it matters more to her right now than the technical definition of the title, is the way that I really enjoy it as a fan.
I'm right there with you on it. I think the kind of the growth of Ahsoka and her journey and becoming herself is so powerful to so many people. And I've taken my own things from it personally in my life and my upbringing and being raised and trained in certain areas and going, well, that doesn't, your actions don't match up to what you're even telling me to be. And it doesn't, no baby tossed out with the bathwater here is what to start with Ahsoka. Like let's get to the core of what this really means. And that's been very powerful. And I think therefore it is justice for the Jedi, right? Just for the concept. It's what you keep talking about. And it continues. I think why I really do love this episode. When people have asked me over the last couple of days, text me, did you love it? What's your favorite part? It's like, it's the campfire stuff, man. It's really interesting. And as someone, who has said before, I love the rebellion and the Empire. Give me some fighting and some pews. I don't follow the Jedi as much as others have, but I'm fascinated about what it means to be a Jedi. And you can continue to ask that question and lessons can still come from that all the way up to Luke in Last Jedi. This is fascinating stuff. And I think it really worked. And the title, I still think it as I interpret it have for me a little bit more of just the general too of the Jedi in the galaxy right now. What does it mean? And because she mentions there's only so few of them left, and I'm intrigued by who that might mean. Luke, Ezra, Cal Kestis, all these names, or something completely different. Or
Quinlan Voss.
Yeah, you suggested Quinlan Voss, which would be great because he's one of those Jedi that's like, let's ask ourselves what it is to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
I think that's great stuff. So I think it all works, and that's why that title spoke to me.
Yeah, and I was just happy to see Bresnikan's so great at being. Yes, he could easily cosplay Clark Kent and Superman. He's a great like reporter guy,
Yeah, yeah.
but he's also just such a thorough Star Wars fan as well. It's great for him to ask those questions. So it's really fun to see an article like this that's like really reflects the things that fans are talking about, in their excitement over this episode.
Absolutely. A lot in the article, bigger things, and even a mention of Yaddle and Filoni joking that maybe he should have said it's a baby Yaddle, but all that's in there. We recommend you check it out, read everything in it for yourself. It's on Vanity Fair right now, or just, go follow Anthony Bresnikan on Twitter, and he'll have some links to it as well. Support the Brez. Next story here. We've got the Rise of Skywalker comic adaptation has been canceled, though I still think that that's not a period on the end of that sentence. Looking at the fine folks at Star Wars Newsnet kind of put together this article in a easy way for me to look at all the things going on here back in February. And shout out to Miguel Fernandez, is the one who wrote this story on Star Wars Newsnet. Back in February, Marvel announced the Rise of Skywalker adaptation was coming, as every other movie has had. And Jodie Hauser, who you and I, Jodie, and Jodie has just been one of my favorite Star Wars writers with a lot of her comic stuff recently. She was going to be doing it. Then in April, because of COVID, they postponed it, moving that and a lot of other things back a bit. And then May 27th, Rise of Skywalker was not dated, if you're following the timeline. Now, after months of uncertainty and speculation, writes Miguel, it now appears the new series will not be released at all. But like I said, there's always a way. There's always a way. We got the novel adaptation by Ray Carson, as you mentioned. That's probably why she was on your mind there.
Not in the unknown regions. That's Ray Sloan. I apologize.
They also are not going to reprint Rise of Kylo Ren #4. So let's talk about this. What this means. I think on the surface is a lot related to the pandemic. But what say you, sir?
Yeah, I hope they release it eventually. I think Jodie is a great Star Wars writer, a great Star Wars adapter, as she's proven. She is a pal of mine, so I would love it for her. I know that she was excited for it. When last I talked to her about it, she did not spill any thoughts or secrets, and just expressed that she was excited, and I was excited for her. So yeah, I really hope that they release it. I think it's kind of inside the Star Wars bubble news enough that it hasn't linked out to like a clickbait of like more evidence that the Rise of Skywalker is bad kind of articles. But I think that there's a fascinating thing with the Skywalker saga of it is undeniably powerful. But the world is kind of changing around it as the Rise of Skywalker came out, right? Have this be the first Skywalker saga film where Hasbro, Kenner, / Hasbro, didn't make classic 3 3/4 action figures specifically for the film, right? There were a couple of the vintage figures. We got the novelization. That was great. And hopefully the comic book adaptation won't be like that, where the action figures didn't come out. Because it kind of feels like the world is changing, things need to adapt, and things need to be a little bit different. But I want some of the kind of classic things that come with the movie to all be there for Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, the figure thing. It seems it was like a little blip on my radar screen. I know you were affected by it, not necessarily more than me, but I didn't stop to think of, wow, that ends something. That's something that's this has just always been taxes, death, and Star Wars figures and comics tied to the movies. So we didn't get that, but I think you're right. It's changing. The markets are changing, and you just can't deny that, right? Like I cannot go to my shop right now, and I am a physical comic buyer. I haven't switched to digital. It's affected my viewing, my reading. I haven't touched the new After series. I'm behind on the Vader series in the main line by 2 months. And that podcasts have changed. You and I have seen that. The numbers different, not necessarily bad or better, but just different. People's habits have changed this year. And I got to think that had something to do with what's going on here.
Yeah. So I have great hopes that it will come out and see the light of day eventually, and I'll be excited to read it.
I will too. Yeah. And again, Jodie Jodie Hauser, her adaptation of the first Thrawn novel is great, because I was okay with that novel. You know, I like it enough, but she brought out parts of that story that just I was like, got it, love it. So she's great writer, and hope she gets her chance on this one, or we get a chance to see it with whatever was done. Final thing, we always check in on Mando Mondays. Just another Mando Monday. There you go. I don't know. This was okay. We got some cool toys. Long live the Empire Gideon shirt. Some timepieces. I don't wear a timepiece anymore, Joseph. So I have a phone. There, talk about things changing. Do you want to get this timepiece from Invicta?
That was the thing that I was most excited about. I probably won't purchase it, but it's a cool watch with the Armorer's helmet on it, and the Armorer was one of my favorite characters going into season 1, and the spoilers continue. I'm even more intrigued by the Armorer now, knowing she's a cult leader. For good or for ill, she is a cult leader. And it's like, hey, get this cult leader for a watch. And I can't wait to see her again, speaking about what we don't know yet. We just don't know. Yeah. We don't know if, why she did what she did, and why she did not tell Din Djarin updated truths about the galaxy, and instead just told him about some songs that may have been sung in eons past.
Eons past, the story of the Armorer. Love it. Yeah, I do the fourth class droid print from Acme Archives. It's IG-11 with the little satchel on the child. It's great. It speaks to me now that it didn't during season 1, because our oldest Chihuahua, Ratsy, Adelaide is her birth name. She's a little older. She's 16 and a half, and she just can't get around as much anymore. So we have like a little baby Bjorn type thing. And I've spent all weekend and most of Thanksgiving with our Chihuahua strapped to the front of me. Like a baby, really, like Grogu here. And so now I'm connecting more with Mandalorian and IG-11 than I thought.
Yeah.
So I might, who knows, maybe I'll pick up that print.
I find myself wondering if and when and how fast all of this mountain of merchandise will be changed from the child to Grogu.
So I would love to give them credit. I can't. Someone in our ForceCenter Discord said that they said, "Oh man, I'm looking forward to a new, just to paraphrase it, but a cavalcade of new old material with new names on it. Old mark,
exactly."
Yeah, so it's the beauty of it. There you go. We'll always keep you updated on Mando Mondays while it is going on. That is the news. But before we get on to your cues after the break, we want to do our ForceCenter Recommends, an audiobook we think you should try out on us. Joseph, what do we got?
This week we have From a Certain Point of View, The Empire Strikes Back edition. We are going to be finishing our review of that this coming Thursday, so check it out.
Absolutely. Download your free audiobook today at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. Quick break. We're going to reset on the other side. Your questions here on ForceCenter.